Well, this place looks absolutely nuts. It's like a landscape Dr. Seuss would draw. What you're looking at is the Zhangyi Dangxia landform, and yes, these striped hills are entirely natural, formed over 24 million years as layers of sandstone and minerals were pressed together, then pushed upward by tectonic movement. Wind and rain sculpted the sharp ridges and valleys, but the colors, the reds, oranges, yellows, and blues, all arranged in these beautiful stripes, it's amazing. At sunrise and sunset, the entire landscape seems to glow, just exaggerating the already surreal look. There's no blending or soft transitions here, it's all these bold layers of color. The shapes and shades register as familiar, yet completely wrong for a mountain range. It almost just looks too deliberate to be random. Also, I don't know about you, but it kind of looks tasty. I don't know, looks like an ice cream flavor or something. The Salvador Dali Desert doesn't look like it belongs to Earth. Looks like it belongs in a dream. Found in southwestern Bolivia, this barren stretch sits at high altitude, scattered with wind-sculpted rocks that look unlike anything else on the planet. Salvador Dali never actually saw this place, but the comparison makes sense. The formations really do look like the distorted shapes from his paintings. A tree made of stone boulders that lean in impossible balances. The most well-known is the stone tree, a narrow trunk supported by a wide crown, like it was carved to be some sort of modern art piece, only of course it wasn't. The desert is silent, dry, mostly lifeless. There are no animals, no buildings, no sounds except the wind, and that just adds to the surreal atmosphere. This place looks unreal. It's called Pumucale. It looks like it's covered in snow, but it's not. What you're looking at is actually solid white stone. See, over thousands of years, hot springs rich in calcium have flowed down the hillside, leaving behind thick mineral deposits that formed into these terraces. The result is a kind of frozen waterfall with bright white steps in these small pools of pale blue water. It looks cold, but it's actually warm to the touch. That contrast is what makes it so strange to walk through. You're standing in what looks like an icy landscape, but there's no ice, and everything is shaped so neatly it almost feels like it must have been created intentionally. The pools are perfectly spaced, the steps look almost evenly cut, but it's all just water and time. It's no surprise that people have been coming here for thousands of years. The ancient city of Hierapolis was built right next to it, and people believed the waters had healing powers. And I can't blame them. Even with crowds around, the layout makes it feel calm and kind of untouched. It doesn't look like any other landscape in the region, or really on the entire planet. Just off the coast of Zakynthos, Greece, there's something strange sitting on the sea floor. It looks like the remains of a sunken city. There are stone pavements, round columns, big flat slabs arranged in what look like neat rows. Divers first thought they discovered some forgotten ancient port or town, but it turns out it's not actually the case. These shapes were formed by natural gas seeps in the ocean floor. Over time, the minerals hardened into these perfectly round and flat structures that just happened to look like parts of a building. Even with that explanation though, it's hard not to question what you're seeing. The geometry feels too deliberate. The slabs connect at right angles. Some of the circular shapes look exactly like carved bases for columns. There are no walls or statues or tools, but your brain still wants it to be ruins. The water here is so clear and shallow too that you can see the whole formation from up above, which only adds to the effect. Salar de Uyuni is the largest salt flat in the world. People say when you're standing in the middle of it, it barely feels real. Looks to me like one of those Windows desktop backgrounds you'd have in the mid-2000s, and I don't mean that in a bad way. Just this place just looks breathtaking. Like I just hear ambient Brian Eno music when I look at images here. For most of the year, it's this massive stretch of solid, dry salt, totally flat, pure white, almost nothing breaking up the horizon. It looks like the surface of another planet. But when it rains, the whole thing changes. You get this thin layer of water that settles on top, turning the salt flat into this near perfect mirror. Suddenly the sky is reflected on the ground, and there's no clear line between up and down. You can walk across it and see your own reflection moving below you. Along with the clouds, sun, and whatever else is overhead, it honestly looks like heaven on earth. And that mirror effect is so precise that satellite agencies sometimes use it to calibrate their instruments. But for anyone visiting with no visible landmarks, it's hard to judge distance. Some will say it almost feels like you're floating between two skies, and the flatness makes it almost impossible to tell how far you've walked. There's nothing quite like this place. Socotra is one of the strangest places on Earth. Not because of any one thing, it's because almost everything about this place feels off. If you ever wanted to visit Pandora from Avatar, this is probably as close as you're gonna get, on Earth at least. The island is part of Yemen, but it broke off from mainland Africa millions of years ago, and in that time, it's developed a completely unique ecosystem. People say unique a lot to describe things. That really does fit here. About a third of the plant life can't be found anywhere else on the planet. The most famous example is the dragon's tree, which looks like a giant umbrella and bleeds red sap when it's cut. Now that's just the start. There are bottle-shaped trees, bizarre shrubs, weird-looking reptiles and birds that evolved in total isolation. Even the coastline looks kinda strange, with pale beaches leading into rocky cliffs and caves carved into limestone. You walk around and get the sense that someone shuffled together a desert, a jungle, and like a sci-fi set. At least that's how it's described, and that's what I can see looking at it. I've never been. I would absolutely love to go, though. Feels like it belongs to a different version of Earth entirely. And local legends talk about how ancient sailors would arrive here and then think they'd found the edge of the known world, and it's easy to see why. Lake Hillier is bright pink. It's not kinda pink. The place is unapologetically Barbie pink. It sits on an island off the coast of Western Australia, surrounded by dark green forest and blue ocean on the other side, and the contrast is just ridiculous. There's no slow transition here. It's just this sharp line between pink and then you got everything else. And the water stays pink even when you scoop it into a bottle. Scientists think that it's caused by a microbe that releases a pigment under certain conditions, but no one's completely figured this out. The lake's only about 600 meters across, no rivers feeding into it, and nothing around it that looks even remotely similar. It's completely harmless too, you can swim in it. You can't swim in this next place though. The Danakil Depression in Ethiopia is one of the most extreme environments on Earth. It's brutally hot, with temperatures regularly hitting over 120 degrees Fahrenheit, or roughly 50 degrees Celsius. The landscape here looks almost like a planet that's still forming. You'll see sulfur springs that glow this neon yellow and green. Bubbling and steaming acidic pools are everywhere, and salt flats are cracked into these sharp, jagged patterns. As you can probably imagine, the air smells like sulfur and salt, and there's almost no plant or animal life except for tiny organisms. Some scientists actually come here to study how early Earth might have looked. Others use it as a stand-in for what alien life might deal with, on other planets. Because nothing about this place looks stable. The ground is always hissing and smoking, and it feels like it could change shape overnight. I kinda imagine it smells like farts, but you'd have to tell me if you've ever been. Flag Geyser in Nevada wasn't supposed to exist. In the 1960s, a geothermal company drilled into the ground looking for energy, and then they accidentally tapped into a pressurized spring. They capped it, but the seal didn't hold. Hot, mineral-rich water started pouring out, and it just never stopped. Over time, those minerals built up into this mound, and algae took over, turning the geyser into this multicolored thing that you're looking at now. Multiple sprouts constantly spraying out hot water. I mean, this thing is indescribable. First of all, look at the colors, the reds, greens, and yellows. It's shaped like something you'd see in a coral reef. It's not huge, maybe about 12 feet tall, but it sticks out like crazy in the middle of this dry, flat desert. Looks like it was grown in a lab. Something went wrong. Unfortunately, it's on private land and it's not generally open to the public, so most people only see it in photos, but it's very real and it's still changing. So if hippie tie-dye somehow became a place, it would have to be the Grand Prismatic Spring in Yellowstone. This is the largest hot spring in the United States and easily one of the most colorful. From above, it looks like this giant, trippy eye. Deep blue in the center, then rings of green, yellow, orange, and red. moving outward. Each band is filled with different types of microbes, each one thriving in a specific temperature. The center is near boiling, crystal clear, but as the water cools near the edges, different microbes take over and change the color. The air is full of steam here, and that constant haze makes the whole thing almost look like it's glowing or breathing. You can't get too close, there's a boardwalk that keeps you at a safe distance, but even from there, it just doesn't look like it should be real. You're staring at a pool that's basically a living chemical reaction, all laid out in these perfect rings. Looks pretty incredible. When James Leininger was just 2 years old, he started having violent nightmares about crashing in a plane. He'd wake up screaming about being stuck in a fire or yelling things like airplane crash and the little man can't get out. During the day, he started naming aircraft parts most toddlers wouldn't know existed, things like drop tanks and Corsairs. He also kept saying he'd flown off a ship called the Natoma and that his name had been James. His parents eventually looked into it and discovered the USS Natoma Bay was a real World War II aircraft carrier. They found a pilot on its roster named James Huston Jr. who died in combat. The plane was shot down and exploded. James the toddler also named another pilot from that crew who was still alive at the time, and when they met, the child recognized him instantly. On top of that, James could recall specific events and details of battles that matched Navy records. His parents had never really talked to him about this stuff at home, and none of it was in any children's books. As he got older, the memories started to fade, but for a while, it seemed like this kid was actually remembering a past life. At 4 years old, Shanti Devi in India started insisting that she had another family in a different town. She told her parents she wasn't really their daughter, that her real name was Lugdi Devi, and she'd lived in Mathura, about 75 miles away. She said she died giving birth to a son and gave the full name of her husband, the town he lived in, what he looked like, and even the layout of their house. At first, everyone thought she was just making things up, but when they actually looked into it, her descriptions lined up. A man named Kedar Nath lived in Mathura, had a wife named Lugdi who died during childbirth, and had a son. When Shanti met him, she instantly recognized him and greeted him like she knew him. She also correctly pointed out places and people in towns she'd supposedly never seen. Word got around and the case became so well known that a commission was set up by order of Gandhi himself. They interviewed witnesses, retraced her claims, and found that almost everything she said had a real-world match. Cameron McCulley was a regular kid growing up in Glasgow, until around age 5 when he started talking non-stop about a place called the Isle of Barra. He claimed he used to live there in a white house by the sea with a black and white dog and a family that he really missed. He talked about planes landing on the beach, his old dad named Shane Robertson, and how his old life had ended when he, quote, fell through. His parents had never even mentioned Barra before, but Cameron was convinced. Eventually they took him to the island, and it turned out there really was a white house by the sea, just like he described. But I mean, whatever, right? A white house, it's not like there aren't any other white houses in the world. Well, this one belonged to a Robertson family, again, just like young Cameron had described. Cameron was walking around like he'd been there before, naming things and pointing out details that lined up with what he'd talked about before. There were no obvious signs of how he could have known any of this. And his memories seemed emotional, not just factual. It didn't seem like he was just repeating stuff. It was as if he was genuinely grieving a life he'd left behind. In 1987, a little girl named Purnima Akanayak was born in Bakumana, Sri Lanka. She was like most kids, except for the fact that she kept talking about being crushed by a heap of iron. She'd also always tell her mother things like people who drive over others are bad, which is of course true, but it was odd that she seemed particularly focused on that specific thing, driving over someone. And when her mom got upset about a car accident that had happened one day, Purnima calmly told her not to worry because she had also died in a crash. She said a big vehicle hit her and she never made it to the hospital. Things got weirder when she started saying she used to make incense, and that her name had used to be Jinadasa. She also described 2 types of incense, how she made them, and how she used to walk around with her hands behind her back, supervising workers. She also claimed she lived across the river from a temple, which was over 140 miles away from her actual home. When her family finally took her there, she started pointing out familiar places and recognized people by name. And man she used to be, who'd died in a car accident, he was real. His name was Janadasa Pereira, and he died in 1985, 2 years before Purnima was born, when a bus ran him over while he was selling incense on his bike. And to top it off, she had a birthmark exactly where Pereira's chest had been crushed. Since childhood, Jenny Cockle would have recurring dreams of being a woman named Mary Sutton, who lived in Ireland, had several children, and died young in the 1930s. As she got older, Jenny became obsessed with finding out if Mary was real. She started piecing together what she remembered, names, locations, and the layout of Mary's old home. Eventually, she tracked down a town in Ireland that matched. She discovered that a woman named Mary Sutton had lived there and had died, leaving behind children. Jenny eventually reached out to them, now elderly, and met with them in person. And to their surprise, she knew all these intimate details about their lives, their personalities as kids, and even specific incidents from their childhood that had never been published or shared. One of the sons in particular became convinced that Jenny really was his mother reincarnated. He said she had the same mannerisms and emotional connection to them that Mary had. Imad Alawar was just under 2 years old when he started telling his parents about a life he had claimed to have lived in another village about 25 miles from where he was growing up in Lebanon. He gave names, described a yellow car he used to own, and spoke about specific relatives, neighbors, and his former job. His family wasn't all that worried at first, but when Imad suddenly ran to a stranger on the street one day and hugged the man as if he recognized him, and it turned out this person was actually from the town Imad had claimed he'd lived in his past life, well, this intrigued his parents. Eventually, they contacted Dr. Ian Stevenson, a psychiatrist who'd been studying cases of past life memories. Stevenson documented that Imad made 47 specific statements about his supposed past life. When Stevenson and the Elawar family visited the town, it turned out that 44 of those 47 statements matched up with the real-life story of a man named Ibrahim Bouncy, who died 5 years before Imad was born. Another important detail is that the child Imad would often talk about how thankful he was for being able to walk. Well, Ibrahim died around the age of 25 after spending a year in a sanatorium. He had tuberculosis and was confined to a bed during the final part of his life. Barbro Karlin was a Swedish writer and poet. When she was just 2 years old, though, she started telling her parents that she was Anne Frank. Her family wasn't religious, and she hadn't been taught anything about the Holocaust yet, but Barbro described details of Anne Frank's life that she shouldn't have known. What the secret annex looked like, how the rooms were arranged, and the names of the people who'd lived there. When her parents finally took her to Amsterdam at age 10, she led them straight to the building without a map or a guide. Once inside, she pointed out changes that had been made to the house since she had lived there. She also seemed terrified of men in uniforms, even if they were just policemen on the street. Barbro went on to become a well-known writer and stood by her memories well into adulthood. She said she remembered parts of her death, the fear of being taken, and a sense of injustice that followed her for years. Seme Tetsumus was born with a misshapen right ear, which his parents chalked up to a birth defect, but when he started talking, he claimed it was from being shot in the head in a past life. He'd said he'd been a man named Salim Fasli, a farmer from another village who'd been killed while working in his fields. He recognized people Salim had known, including his widow, and called her by name. He also gave names of Salim's kids and talked about private conversations and daily routines that no stranger would realistically know. Dr. Ian Stevenson, the same researcher who studied Imad Alawar, investigated Sami's case and found it pretty compelling. Salim had in fact been shot dead, and Sami's ear deformity was right where the bullet had entered. The way Sami talked about Salim's life was natural, like he was recalling memories instead of making things up. One of the eeriest parts was how Sami's personality was different from other kids in his village. He was more serious and cautious, traits Salim's family said matched the man that they had remembered. Chennai Chumale Wong was born in Thailand in 1967. When he was just 3 years old, he started saying he used to be a school teacher named Bua Kai. He claimed he'd been killed while riding his bicycle to work. His story got weirder when his family noticed he had two unusual birthmarks, one on the back of his head and another above his left eye. Well, Bukai was a real person who had died, and according to his autopsy report, the entry and exit wounds of the bullet that killed him matched up perfectly with Chennai's birthmarks. Chennai kept insisting he wanted to go home and would say the name of the village where he said he'd lived. Eventually his grandma took him there, and without hesitation he walked up to Buakai's old house. He correctly identified the man's parents and described items that had been in the home years earlier. He also remembered details like the name of Kai's bicycle and how he used to teach math. This case takes a turn from creepy to downright chilling. So a 3-year-old boy in Golan Heights, a region between Syria and Israel, started telling his family he'd been killed in a past life. He said he died when he was attacked with an axe and was buried in a nearby field. Elders in the community followed him to the spot, where they dug up a human skeleton with a wound in the skull, right where the boy said the axe had struck. Not only that, but the boy claimed to remember the name of his killer. When they confronted the man, he allegedly confessed. The whole thing was documented by Dr. Eli Lash, a respected physician known for his public health work. He said the boy's memories were disturbingly detailed, right down to the type of axe used. Former police officer David Paulides has been collecting these cases under what he calls Missing 411. He specifically filters out incidents with logical explanations so that what's left are stories that truly don't make sense. In some reports, tracking dogs have refused to follow the scent or get visibly spooked. Clocks act strangely, storms roll in out of nowhere, and in a few extreme examples, the person claims they were watched or lured by something they couldn't quite explain. One theory is that these people aren't just getting lost, they're slipping through cracks in reality. In the early 80s, rumors started circulating about strange military experiments happening at Camp Hero, an old Air Force station in Montauk, New York. The story went that there was psychic testing going on, time travel, and the opening of gateways to other dimensions. A few people had come forward saying they'd been a part of it, either willingly or as kids who were abducted into the program. According to these accounts, the government was trying to weaponize the human mind. They supposedly succeeded in creating psychic soldiers who could manipulate objects, see and hear things that were going on from very distant locations, or even open dimensional rifts. There's one story where they allegedly opened a portal too wide and something came through, something not human. Supposedly, they shut the project down after that. Another account describes a time chair which let people travel into the past or future, but often came with disorienting side effects. Of course, there have never been any official documents that have confirmed any of this. It's easy to pass this off as an urban legend, but the thing is, some of the same people involved in these stories also had ties to MKUltra, which was very real and proven. So that's kind of given the Montauk Project a little more validity to some. As always though, what do you think? This next one goes back to 1943, in the middle of World War II. The story is that US Navy tried to make a ship invisible to radar at the Philadelphia Naval Shipyard. The ship was the USS Eldridge, but according to people who claim to have witnessed it, something much stranger happened. That's putting it lightly. Something cosmically horrific happened. They say the ship vanished completely and then reappeared hundreds of miles away in Norfolk, Virginia, and when it came back, the crew was not well. First off, there were a ton of them missing, and many who had shown back up with the ship were quite literally with the ship. They'd fused into the metal. The lucky ones just went insane, claiming to have seen something on the other side. The Navy has always denied that anything like this happened, but the story came to light through a man named Carl Allen, who sent letters detailing the events later. Of course, he was written off for being unstable, but the story took off anyway. There's even an X-Files episode about this one. To be fair, X-Files goes in some incredibly weird directions, so this is in no way adding validity to the story, but it does go to show just how much the Philadelphia experiment, as it came to be called, was talked about. What's interesting about this story is how specific it is, too. It doesn't really feel like your typical urban legend. It sounds more like someone trying to explain something that they don't fully understand. Who knows, maybe something strange really did happen that day. Maybe there really was an experiment that caused a breach in the fabric of reality. In the small town of Taos, New Mexico, people have been hearing a strange sound since the early 90s, a low-frequency hum, like a distant engine running, a hum that never seems to go away. Not everyone hears it, but for those who do, it's constant. Where does it come from? Well, that's the mystery. But the people who hear it report headaches, insomnia, and just overall dread, like something's just off. The government has sent scientists to investigate. They've recorded the environment, tested the soil, the air, everything, but they couldn't find what was actually causing it. The hum isn't picked up by microphones or equipment, so it's basically impossible to study. It's almost like it's happening inside the victims' bodies, which is about as terrifying as it sounds, no pun intended. Now, there are theories as to what this could be. Electromagnetic interference, underground drilling, some sort of secret military technology, but is it possible people are hearing something even stranger than that? Like an echo from another dimension? Maybe the hum isn't a sound at all, but more of a frequency from another place, something leaking in. Just a thought. This story popped up on Reddit a couple years back from a user who deleted their account shortly after posting. Here's what they wrote. I've lived in the same apartment for about 4 years. It's nothing fancy, 1 bedroom, open kitchen, small balcony, but about 2 weeks ago I came home from work and noticed something weird. The door handle felt different, like it was just slightly lower than I remembered. Same style, same lock, just off. When I walked in, everything looked normal at first, but my keys were in a different bowl than I usually leave them. I thought maybe I was just tired, but then I noticed my bookshelf. There were 2 books on it that I don't own. One of them was a collection of short stories by Ray Bradbury that I'd been meaning to buy but hadn't yet. The other was a guidebook for a city I've never been to. I asked my girlfriend if she bought them over. She said no. I called my landlord just to be sure no one had entered while I was at work. He checked. Nothing. Since then, a few other tiny things have changed. A painting in the hallway is an inch higher. My phone background changed to a photo I don't remember taking. I know how this sounds, but it feels like I came back to a version of my life that's almost the same, just not quite. Guys, I can't speak to the validity of stories like this on Reddit. If you are experiencing things like this, go to a doctor. Just, some advice. In December of 1900, 3 lighthouse keepers stationed on the remote Flannan Isles off the coast of Scotland vanished without a trace. When a relief crew arrived after a storm had delayed them, they found the lighthouse empty. Everything inside was undisturbed. Clocks had stopped, meals were left on the table, and one of the men's coats was still hanging on a hook. The only clue was a logbook entry mentioning a violent storm, but the weather had actually been pretty calm the day they supposedly wrote it. No bodies were ever found. The official explanation is that a massive wave may have swept them out to sea, but that doesn't add up. Why were there no signs of struggle, no debris, nothing washed up? It was like they just stepped off the island and vanished. For decades, amateur astronomers and conspiracy theorists have pointed to something strange orbiting Earth, an unidentified object known as the Black Knight satellite. The story really kicked off in the 50s when both the US and Soviet Union detected something unusual in orbit. It wasn't one of theirs. It didn't match the movement of any known satellites at the time. And then there's the really weird part. In the 70s, images taken during a NASA mission seemed to show this strange, jagged object in orbit, and it didn't look like space junk or any known satellite. Some believe it's been up there for 13,000 years, sent by an ancient civilization or aliens as a monitoring device. Nikola Tesla himself claimed to have received a repeating signal from space in the 1890s, and some now connect that to this. No one knows exactly what it is. NASA says the object in the photos is just a thermal blanket that came loose during a mission, but that explanation doesn't sit well with people who've followed the story for decades. If it really is something watching us from above, then who or what put it there, and how long have they been watching? Is it possible that we're all immortal? Not in the way that you'll never age or anything like that, but in a more like you'll never die kind of way. It's called quantum immortality, and it's one of the weirder consequences of quantum physics. Here's the basic idea. Most of us have probably heard of the theory that multiple realities form from every decision we make, every situation we find ourselves in. In quantum mechanics, there's a theory that every time something happens, the universe splits, creating a parallel universe where things went the other way. For example, let's say you're walking across the street and you nearly get hit by a bus. Close call. Well, in another reality, the bus didn't miss. In another, you were nowhere near it. In another, the bus didn't even show up. Now, you, the observer, are at the center of your own timeline. Here's where the immortality aspect comes in. If you can't observe a version of the universe where you're dead, you'll always end up in the one where you survive. That means every time you should have died, you just didn't. At least you don't experience the version where you did. From your point of view, you'll always wake up in the version of reality where you lived. Sure, other people might attend your funeral in their timelines, or the ones you used to be in, but you never actually experience death. You just keep shifting into the universe where you dodged the bullet. Now, I'm not exactly sure where old age comes into this. I mean, eventually we all do die, right? But I don't know, maybe reincarnation plays into this somehow. Look, it's totally unprovable, but it's a neat idea, and at the very least, maybe there's a version of all of our lives where we make it to 100 and pass away peacefully in bed, rather than dying in some awful accident or something. Pan Am Flight 914 is a story that keeps getting passed around because, real or not, it's an interesting story. A Pan Am Douglas DC-4 with 62 people on board took off from New York, headed to Miami on July 2nd of 1955. It vanished. Radio contact was lost, and it was presumed to have crashed. But then something weird happens, just not for another 37 years. In 1992, the same plane allegedly appeared out of nowhere on the radar of an airport in Venezuela. Air traffic control made contact, and the pilot sounded confused, saying they were en route to Miami and due to land at 9:55 a.m., as if no time had passed. The story goes there were witnesses who said the tower told the pilot where he was, which reportedly freaked him out. He supposedly panicked, restarted the engines, and took off again before anyone could stop him. The plane eventually landed in Miami shortly afterward, but authorities supposedly kept the incident quiet. Some versions of the story say the passengers were dazed, carrying outdated newspapers and IDs with no idea that they just jumped forward in time. But is this just an urban legend, or did something actually unexplainable happen that was quickly covered up? The Large Hadron Collider has been at the center of multiple wild theories ever since it switched on in 2008. Officially, it's a massive particle accelerator built by the European Organization for Nuclear Research, or CERN. It was created to smash atoms together at insane speeds in order to study the makeup of the universe. But there are plenty of people who think that something very strange happened when this thing was switched on, that a sort of Pandora's box was unleashed. One theory is that when the LHC fired up, there was this shift, that it either created a parallel universe or blended ours with another. The timing does kinda line up with when people started reporting strange phenomena on a big scale. The Mandela effect, for example, really exploded in popularity around the same time, but people also started sharing more personal stories on internet forums about how time just didn't seem to be moving right anymore, or how reality felt off in subtle ways they couldn't quite explain. And it didn't help that in 2016, CERN released a video of what looked like a human sacrifice ritual taking place on their grounds, which they later said was a prank. And do I believe that? Yeah, first of all, I just think that's a funny idea. I love that they went there. And I also just don't think there was a genuine ritual sacrifice captured on camera here. For anyone who is already skeptical, though, they were even more skeptical after this. But what do you think? Have you noticed weird shifts in your reality since 2008? I'll give you this, it is a weirder world we're living in. A woman named Pam Reynolds was brain dead for over an hour. Somehow, she came back describing things she couldn't have possibly known. In 1991, Reynolds underwent a rare procedure called a standstill operation to remove a brain aneurysm. Her body temperature was lowered significantly, her heartbeat and brain activity were completely stopped, and her eyes were taped shut. she was clinically dead, and yet, after she was revived, she gave eerily accurate descriptions of the operating room. She even described the exact surgical tools being used and recounted conversations between doctors. That's because when she was under, she claimed that she floated out of her body and saw herself laying on the table before being pulled toward a tunnel of light. She said she met dead relatives there who communicated with her without speaking, and that she needed to be convinced to return to her body, which of course she did. But what exactly happened here? How could someone with no brain function, no sensory input, describe real-time events in such clear detail? Till this day, there's never been a definitive explanation for this. Ong's Hat was a real village in New Jersey, now abandoned. In the late 80s though, pamphlets and documents started surfacing claiming secret experiments happened there involving interdimensional travel. So a group called the Institute for Chaos Studies allegedly set up a lab in the Pine Barrens. There they built a device known as the Egg, a sensory deprivation pod meant to alter consciousness. The theory was that under the right conditions, the pod could shift someone into a parallel universe. Well, supposedly it worked. Some of the researchers vanished, remaining in some alternate version of Earth. These so-called documents circulated in zines and early internet forums. Nowadays, this is mostly seen as a hoax, and I'm sure a lot of people also saw it that way back then, but some still insist there was something strange actually going on here, that maybe, at the very least, the story was some sort of cover-up for actual experiments with, fictional elements used to discredit anything and distract people from anything disturbing that was actually happening. I don't know, what do you guys think of this one? Bold Street has become a rather infamous area in Liverpool, where dozens of people have claimed to experience time slips. One story goes that a young woman named Imogen had gone shopping for some things for her sister's new baby. As she walked toward the corner of Lord Street in Whitechapel, she was excited to see a new mother care store that she hadn't noticed before. Inside, she browsed through items like baby cardigans and bibs, surprised at how cheap everything was. When she went to pay with her credit card at the front, the cashier looked confused and called the manager over. The manager turned and told Imogen that they didn't accept credit cards, only cash. Since she had none on her, Imogen left empty-handed, but when she told her mother what happened, her mom looked stunned. The mother care store had closed years ago, and the spot was now a bank, the very bank her mom used. And that's not the only weird story to come out of Bold Street. In 2006, a young man named Sean was caught shoplifting in Liverpool. While fleeing down Hanover Street, he turned into Brooks Alley, a dead end. As he caught his breath, he suddenly felt strange, like the air had thickened. He basically just waited for the security guard to follow, but no one came. Confused, Sean stepped back out into Hanover Street and instantly knew something was wrong. The street looked older. The cars were vintage. Roadworks he'd seen earlier were gone. People walked by in these outdated clothes, and there were traffic lights where there shouldn't be any. Sean pulled out his phone. There was no signal. He rushed towards Bold Street and spotted a newspaper stand. The date on the paper was May 18th, 1967. Terrified, Sean ran to a jewelry store where he pulled out his phone again, and this time it worked. Just like that, he was back in the present. Later, when he told his story to the local press, he repeated it in the exact same way every time, and while people assumed he made it up to dodge shoplifting charges, the newspaper followed up, and not only did they find his account consistent, but all the historical details he described, down to the clothes, the street layout, businesses, they were accurate for Liverpool in 1967. Even the security guard kinda backed it up. He said when he chased Sean into Brooks Alley, the kid had simply vanished. On November 9th of 1986, Spanish industrial expert Pedro Olivia Ramirez was driving from Seville to Alcalá del Guadera late at night. He knew the road well, but suddenly, after a curve, everything changed. The road widened into 3 massive lanes in each direction, surrounded by tall, strange buildings that he didn't recognize. On one side were huge glowing industrial buildings, on the other were these towering apartment buildings with 20 floors or so. None of it made sense, and things just got weirder from there. Pedro started to feel a wave of heat inside his car, along with strange voices, almost like a distant choir. One voice told him he'd been transported to another country or possibly another planet. by extraterrestrials. And for the next couple hours, he drove through this strange place, even stopping a couple times to walk along the roadside and study the odd grass and the bizarre traffic. Notice that cars passed him every 8 minutes or so, like clockwork. Eventually, Pedro reached a road sign with directions to his home or where he was coming from. Well, he chose to retrace his steps, but he suddenly found himself parked in front of his house, and he had no memory of how he got there. He tried to retrace his path, but the wide roads, the buildings, and the strange signs were gone now. And somehow the trip, which should have only taken him about 30 minutes, had lasted over 3 hours, and he'd burned way more fuel than normal. Just what in the hell is going on up in the sky in this first video? So here we see a group of folks hanging outside watching the sky, cause something just doesn't seem right. The sky is bright blue. The thing is, it's not daytime, and everyone's pretty shook up about it. Especially when the sky suddenly turns dark again, as we can see here. Now, clearly there is a storm. I mean, you see some subtle lightning flashes in the distance, there's dark clouds up above, but this was one serious flash of lightning, if that's even what it was. I mean, it really does look like there was a glitch in the sky, and then suddenly it became daytime for a few moments and then went back to normal. And here are some images of the sky that night. That looks pretty insane. If I saw that, I would definitely think the apocalypse was on its way. Funniest comment on this one, by the way, could be one of those high-powered flashlights. Yes, high-powered flashlights, known to do that to the sky. Can you make any sense of this next clip? Weird. Snow filling up the reflection in the mirror, but panning to the window, to outside, there looks to be no snow falling. I really wish snow worked this way here. I mean, it looks lovely when you don't actually have to go outside and shovel it, walk through it, drive through it, shiver through it, clean up all the snow residue you inevitably drag into your house. If we really are living in a simulation, I would just prefer, you know, this type of glitch to happen more often, is all I'm saying. Is that too much to ask for? The bird in this next video comes from Blue French Horn 26, who said that her daughter's boyfriend was on his way to lifeguard training when he spotted this. Just what is wrong with birds lately? This is not the first bird stuck in midair video that I've seen online, and what's interesting about this clip is the dude behind the camera is not the only one who notices that something is off. One guy had gotten out of his car to take a picture. So it's interesting that people at different angles saw the bird and noticed how weird it was. I say this because some commenters said the bird may have been suspended by fishing line or something, which is possible, but you certainly can't see any sign of that in the video. What do you all think of this one though? Leave your thoughts down in the comments. We usually talk about planes disappearing on this channel, but this is something else entirely. A plane that seems to just be sitting up in the sky. This one comes from TikToker Tanya.Draws, who was driving down a road in Chicago when she spotted the plane, and according to her, it was not the first time. What's crazy about this one is how low the plane is. I've seen other videos where people bug out about a plane seemingly frozen in the sky, but the plane is usually way higher up in the air. Easy for optical illusions to happen in that case, and while this could be an optical illusion too, it is just interesting to me how close this plane is. I mean, we get a nice, clear view here. Anyway, regardless of the explanation, I mean, it just looks super weird. This next video got a lot of people talking about a year back. So a man named Eddie from Fresno, California, going by Break and Pop on TikTok, posted a video showing the reflection of this orange Corvette C8 in the window of a strip mall. The thing is, no one can find the actual car in the parking lot. Eddie pans the camera across the lot multiple times, repeatedly asking, "Where is this car? I seriously don't see the car anywhere." This one went viral. Hundreds of commenters trying to make sense of what they were seeing. Eddie even included the text "glitch in the matrix" and asked in the caption if anyone could explain what was going on. Some said it was proof that we're living in a simulated world. Some eagle-eyed commenters also pointed out some other strange details about the video, like 2 mannequins on a bench and this weird bird bath sign that led one user to joke, "Do birds even read?" Seemed like there was just a lot of odd stuff about this parking lot. So this next one is pretty creepy. A TikToker named Laughter Awaits posted this clip of a woman seemingly frozen in place. And the pair behind the camera are understandably totally dumbfounded by what they're seeing. Not only is this woman standing perfectly still, but her legs are crossed. I mean, like, how do you stand in this? I mean, I know you can't see me, but just imagine I'm crossing your legs, if you will. This video also goes on for over a minute, and she would have been standing like that before they started recording. Whoever this person is, she would be amazing at red light, green light, but all of a sudden, she just unfreezes and continues to walk like nothing happened. Very strange. Imagine seeing that at night though. You just look outside your bedroom window and she's there, just mid-stride, frozen in place. Those blinds would be getting closed. This next video comes from Lynn's No Hands, who wrote in the caption, "Why are all the same cars parked in this empty townhome neighborhood?" Very good question, Linz. Let's take a look. So, yep, as the caption says, it's all the same car, different colors, sure, but same type. And they're all backed into the driveways. None are facing the other way. Pretty weird stuff. And I don't know about you, but whenever I'm driving past neighborhoods like this, I do get a weird feeling anyway. It's just, a series of boring houses, all identical, just repeating over and over and over again. This, of course, takes it to a whole other level though. I mean, I don't know, like, did someone just buy this entire neighborhood and then turn it into a car dealership? Your guess is as good as mine. So back in 2023, a TikTok video posted by user unknown1575489, very catchy title, started making the rounds online. This video shows a person walking down a busy sidewalk, or rather, not walking. As we can all clearly see, this woman appears to be frozen mid-stride. It's not a still image, there are cars driving by. This person seems to be just stuck in place. Then moments later, the person just snaps back to reality and starts walking again. This video racked up more than 5.5 million views, with thousands of comments diving into theories. Most of them, of course, pointed straight to simulation theory, with users joking that this person was like an NPC in a video game. And yeah, I can't say I don't get some cyberpunk glitch vibes from this video. What's odd is that her hair doesn't even appear to move at all. It's one thing for someone to just stand as still as they can, but that bit is just extra odd. The hair not moving. And according to the uploader, she'd been standing like that for about a minute before he even started recording. So did this fish just learn to swim in midair? This video comes from TikToker Ruben.v.irs, and yeah, I do not know what the hell is happening here. So we watch as the water drains from the tank, but this fish doesn't go down with the water. It just stays at the exact level it was before, swimming around in the tank, just not with water around its body. Some of these things are really hard to describe in words, and here it is from another angle. And here, you'll notice that there are other fish in the tank, and they float down with the water as it drops further and further down the tank, because, that's just how gravity works. But this one fish zips from the bottom of the tank to the top, where there's nothing but empty space. Pretty cool video. Just what in the fork is this? Posted by Nico Too Swift. He and his siblings watch as this fork does what no fork has done before. I sat down for a while trying to form the words to describe what I'm looking at, but I just gave up. I mean, you can see what's happening. Now, not only is this very weird, but reading the text, this was all filmed at his brother's place, which, according to him, was haunted. So apparently this was not the only strange thing they'd experienced at this house. I used to watch this video all the time growing up. It's one of my favorites. So in this classic piece of police dashcam footage, Officer Wayne Daniels is caught in a chase with this white car. The vehicle is weaving through traffic, making all these freaky, sporadic maneuvers, almost like the car itself is possessed. But aside from that, it's a pretty standard car chase until the vehicle makes a hard left and drives straight through a fence. Yes, through it. All Officer Wayne Daniels can do now is just watch as the vehicle he was pursuing fades into the distance beyond the intact fence right in front of him. Spooky stuff. Next is another strange car video. This one comes out of Russia. So this vehicle goes to make a left-hand turn, and as it moves into the intersection, suddenly this random car just appears, cutting them off, nearly causing a collision. Now, on one hand, you have all the strange theories. Is it a ghost car? Did the vehicle just suddenly spawn out of a parallel reality? On the other hand, this driver could have just roared into the intersection so fast they weren't on camera until they just seemed to show up, and that is just reckless driving. And honestly, I think that freaks me out way more than some mysterious phantom car appearing out of nowhere. Well, if there's anything that looks like it materialized out of a parallel reality, it's this thing. This has become a pretty famous photograph in the UFO/UAP community. It's called the Calvin photo. It was actually hidden for decades. Some people say it's one of the clearest UFO images ever taken. The story goes that back in 1990, two hotel chefs were out on a casual hike in the Scottish Highlands near a place called Calvin. They were just out for some fresh air, nice view, and then boom, they spot this massive diamond-shaped object just hovering in the sky. That's when they managed to snap their picture. A real sharp picture as well. They send it to a newspaper, but instead of publishing it, the paper passes it straight to the Ministry of Defense, and then the photo just disappears for over 30 years. Well, in 2022, a journalist named David Clark finally drags it out of hiding. Turns out a former Royal Air Force press officer had a copy stashed away this whole time. Clark gets a photo expert to analyze it, and guess what? There's no signs of tampering to the image. It is legit. So, what is this thing? Well, Clark thinks it's a real UFO. Not necessarily alien maybe, but definitely something unidentified. What you're looking at here is footage of what's been referred to as the Hasdalen lights in Norway. These things have been showing up since the 1930s, and no one's been able to fully explain what they are. It's these weird glowing orbs or flashes of light. They're seen floating or zooming around a valley. Sometimes they hover in one spot, other times they move around, fast or slow. They've been seen at night, in the daytime, and they've stuck around anywhere from a few minutes to several hours. Scientists have actually tried to study them too. There's been legit research, long-term observation. People have tried to explain it with stuff like ionizing gas clouds, rare atmospheric conditions, or reflections from aircraft lights, you know, all the standard science guesses, but none of them have ever definitively solve the mystery. Just what exactly is going on here? Well, it's called ball lightning. It's a rare, unexplained phenomenon, a glowing orb of electricity that floats around during a thunderstorm. Sometimes ball lightning will stick around for several seconds, even up to a minute. People have described it as anything from the size of a golf ball to a basketball, sometimes bright white, other times glowing blue or orange. It's weird, it's unpredictable, and it doesn't follow any of the normal rules. The craziest part is scientists still don't really know how it works. There are a bunch of theories floating around. Maybe it's plasma, maybe it's some kind of gas reacting with electrical charges, maybe it's something else entirely. No one's ever been able to make it happen in a lab. It just shows up randomly and then it's gone. That's probably why there are stories of ball lightning flying through closed windows or even damaging people's homes. It's like it just phases in from somewhere else and then disappears again like nothing ever happened. So yeah, could it be some rare natural thing we just don't get yet? Yeah, sure. Or maybe it's not just electricity at all. Maybe it's something slipping in from another dimension for a few seconds before vanishing back to wherever it came from. Did this TikToker briefly switch realities or experience a glitch in the Matrix? Jade Gonzalez, or as she goes by on TikTok, KDaddy777_2, she shared some security footage taken at the restaurant she works at. She'd been cutting lemons when something very strange happened. Take a look. So she slices through this lemon twice, once in half, and then she cuts through one of the halves. She goes to put the cut half in a bag, and then she's like, what? She inspects it for a little bit, only to realize it's not cut anymore, so she ends up having to recut it. Now, is it possible she just didn't slice all the way through the lemon? Yeah, but it didn't appear to be cut at all, at least according to her. Now, it looks to me like she sliced through that sucker. I mean, I see the separation, but then somehow it supposedly forms back together. Interestingly, some commenters mention a yellowish flash appearing around the lemon. One guy said, okay, with the brightness all the way up and my face an inch from my screen, I see two clear halves and a yellow-white flash, and it's suddenly whole again. I don't know, guys, we may have an interdimensional glitch lemon on our hands. This is Brady Feigl, and this is a guy named Brady Feigl. No, I did not just show two pictures of the same guy. Are they twins? Well, not technically. Are they brothers? Nope. Are they related at all? No. They're just two very similar looking men who happen to be named Brady Feigl, played minor league baseball around the same time, have an identical height of 6'4", and they each share exactly 53% Germanic ancestry. I mean, you know, just some minor coincidences. You know what I'm gonna say now? The fact that these two exist so closely to each other as well, it just feels like a glitch. I mean, if we really are living in a simulation, then this is a very clear case of someone running things who just got lazy and just copied and pasted these two guys with some very slight tweaks. And before, you know, any know-it-alls in the comments are like, they don't look like twins, just stop, all right? They do, unequivocally. Identical twins? Maybe not. There are some clear differences in their faces, but they do look like they could be fraternal twins. Just admit it. So it's late at night and a trucker in Mexico is hauling cargo to Monterrey. Nothing weird, it's just another long drive until the company supervisor checks the truck's remote camera and sees something that makes his skin crawl. Sitting in the passenger seat is what looks like a woman. Pale, wearing old-fashioned clothes. Now, at first the supervisor just thinks the driver picked up a hitchhiker or something, which is totally against company policy. So he messages the driver, like, what's with the passenger? The driver is confused, and he just kind of thinks his boss is messing with him, so he keeps driving. But when he finally arrives at his destination, the supervisor shows him the dashcam footage. The driver freaks out, swearing up and down that he was alone the whole time. But clearly someone was caught on video sitting there next to him the entire trip. Now, it'd be one thing if it was a woman in modern clothes sitting there chatting with the driver, but this wasn't really the case here. Something just seems off about this woman. A ghost? A weird glitch in the Matrix? Either way, you ask the driver and he'd probably tell you it was the creepiest thing he'd ever experienced on the road. What would you do if you were strolling through the park and came across this? 4 black cats, each one chilling on a separate bench. Not just randomly sprawled out either. I mean, 3 of them are sitting right on the edge of their benches, like they're part of some feline cult meeting, waiting for the 4th member to arrive. As for that last cat, well, you know, it's still in motion, just hasn't figured out its assigned seating yet. This image was posted to Reddit titled Control-C, Control-V, so copy-paste, and yeah, it really does look like someone copy and pasted the same cat over and over. Now, black cats already get a bad rap thanks to superstitions, and seeing 4 of them lined up like some shadowy council of judgment doesn't exactly scream good vibes. I'm not even superstitious myself, but I don't even think I'd risk sitting on one of those benches. All right, let's finish off the list with some sciencey talk. So the universe is expanding faster than it should be, and scientists can't quite figure out why. That weird mystery is called the Hubble tension. Basically, we're getting different answers depending on how we measure the speed of the universe's expansion, and it's throwing everything off. To explain it, some researchers from the University of New Mexico and UC Davis have floated a theory that there could be a mirror world. Yes, a full-blown parallel universe made up of what are called shadow particles. Exact copies of the ones in our universe, but invisible, and only detectable through gravity. They're saying this hidden realm could be messing with how we perceive expansion, and might even be the source of dark matter, which is believed to make up most of the universe, but it isn't actually observable. This mirror world idea isn't totally new, but until recently it wasn't linked to solving the Hubble problem. Now scientists think it might be the missing piece that makes the math work. No one's saying that we've, confirmed the existence of parallel universes just yet, but if this turns out to be true, it could completely flip how we see the cosmos. What you're looking at here is obviously police inspecting a crashed car, but this was no normal car. This is known as the Surrey ghost car case. On December 11th of 2002, multiple calls came into the police about a car swerving off the road and crashing into a ditch near an exit ramp in Surrey, England. Police show up, expecting to find a fresh crash and maybe help a driver in trouble, but they find something stranger. At first, the officers don't see anything unusual, it's just another crash site, but as they get closer, they spot this old, overgrown vehicle. And they do find the driver, but he's no longer alive, and hadn't been for a long time. And I don't mean hours, I mean months. It was the body of a man named Christopher Brian Chandler. He'd been missing for months. Based on the state of the car and the body, the police quickly determined the crash had happened 5 months earlier, back in July of the same year. Christopher's family confirmed that he had been missing since then. So the question was, what were people actually seeing on that cold December night when they phoned the police? There were no other accidents to be found. Some people believe they were seeing a sort of ghost car, a glimpse into another reality. Could it have been a time slip where the crash from the past somehow overlapped with the present moment? Some people think the reports of a crash were from a parallel universe or timeline, and the car appeared in real time for just a brief moment before disappearing. No one really knows for sure, and we'll probably never get the full answer, but it's a perfect example of how strange the world can be, and that maybe there's more going on than we can ever hope to understand. Now, what you're looking at here is known as a cold spot, deep out in space. Back in 2004, astronomers detected an anomaly in the cosmic microwave background, or CMB, the faint afterglow of the Big Bang. This cold spot is noticeably cooler than its surroundings, spanning approximately 1.8 billion light years. At first, scientists attributed this to a vast, empty supervoid, a massive region with fewer galaxies, but studying it further using more precise measurements, there's some doubt about that explanation, suggesting the void might not be as large or as empty as they thought. Well, so what does this mean though? Well, the discrepancy has led some researchers to wonder if the so-called cold spot could be the result of our universe colliding with another universe during the early stages of cosmic inflation. A collision like that could have left an imprint in the CMB, giving us possible evidence for the existence of parallel universes. This is the Antarctic Impulsive Transient Antenna, or ANITA for short. It's a NASA-funded experiment designed to detect high-energy cosmic neutrinos by capturing radio waves emitted when these particles interact with the Antarctic ice sheet. During its flights, ANITA spotted several events where particles appeared to be traveling upward through the Earth instead of coming down from up in space. Scientists were very confused because that's not supposed to happen. Particles like neutrinos had never been seen passing through the Earth like that. Well, one hypothesis is that these anomalies could be explained by the existence of a parallel universe where the laws of physics, including the direction of time, are reversed. In this scenario, particles originating from a mirror universe could travel upward through our planet. In 2019, scientists dropped what looked like a blurry orange donut onto the internet and basically broke science Twitter for a week. What people were seeing was the first real photographic evidence of a black hole, snapped by the Event Horizon Telescope. Now, what we're looking at isn't the black hole itself technically, because physics just won't let us actually see the thing. What it is the glowing gas and light bending around the edges of the black hole. That ring is the Event Horizon, a one-way ticket to nowhere, or maybe somewhere else. See, theoretical physicists like Nikodem Pawlowski think that black holes might not just absorb stuff into nothingness, but may instead be gateways to other universes. His theory says when matter collapses into a black hole, it might not get crushed out of existence, but instead get funneled into an entirely new universe on the other side. Like, imagine every black hole being the Big Bang for a different reality. It's all based on some deep theoretical physics. No one can prove it yet, but it does fit in with the idea about multiverses and bouncing universes instead of just one big beginning. So yeah, maybe this blurry space donut isn't just a hole, maybe it's a door. What you're looking at here is a piece of what's called Kirlian photography. Back in the late 1930s, a guy named Simon Kirlian figured out that if you zap something with a high voltage current and take a picture of it, you get these weird glowing outlines around the object. Plants, apples, people's fingers, suddenly they all looked like they had some kind of electric aura around them. It was like photographing a life energy, or maybe something from some other reality bleeding into ours. Now, people still argue about what this actually shows. Some say it's just moisture or static or whatever. Cool, noted. But we're here to talk about the weird and unexplained. So others think this glow is something deeper, a glimpse into another layer of existence, something we can't see with our eyes, but might be there all the time, kind of like the Force. Some even claim these energy fields shift with your mood or health, and if you believe the more far-out theories, you're literally watching energy from another dimension react in real time. No one's ever managed to fully explain it, but the fact that a basic electrical rig might be snapping pics of alternate layers of reality, that's the kind of stuff that does keep you up at 3 a.m. scrolling deeper and deeper into the weirder parts of the internet. Back in 2007, a security camera at the courthouse in Santa Fe caught something weird early in the morning around 7 a.m. On the footage, there's this glowing white thing, kind of round, kind of shapeless too, just drifting across the frame. It wasn't fast or anything, just sort of floating there. People online immediately started calling it a ghost. Obviously, I mean, what else are people gonna say? Well, some said it looked more like something out of phase with reality, like we were seeing a bleed through from somewhere else entirely. The way it moves doesn't look like a reflection or a glitch. It looks like it's there, just not in the way anything else usually is. Of course, the official explanation was that it was a bug walking across the lens, and sure, it could be that, but what do you think? Does it really look like a bug? People in different parts of the world have filmed what looks like two suns in the sky at the same time. One bright sun and then a second one that looks slightly smaller but still glowing like a legit celestial body. Naturally, a lot of people are pretty confused about this. Some folks say it's just a lens flare. Others say that nope, that was actually in the sky. So scientists have looked into it, like Jim Kaler, an astronomer from the University of Illinois, who says it's probably some kind of atmospheric optical illusion, light bending in weird ways because of moisture or temperature layers in the air, but even he is not 100% sure what the hell's going on. Mirages usually stack vertically, like one image above the other. This double sun thing is side by side, which makes a little less sense, so no one knows exactly what causes it. Grant Perry, another scientist, flat out said this is not a common optical phenomenon. So yeah, maybe it's just a weird trick of the light, or maybe we're seeing something that we can't even begin to comprehend. So this one is pretty wild. There's a CCTV clip that's become pretty well known for how downright bizarre it is. A guy is walking down the street at night. A second man enters the frame in front of him, at which point the first guy does something super weird. The guy in the back taps the dude in the front on the shoulder right as a car whizzes by and a metal object swings out as the guy in front is about to get swatted with it. If it weren't for the tap, he would have been hit, no question. The guy who does the tapping seems completely unfazed though. He's not panicking, he doesn't even look back to check if the car's about to hit him. How did he know what was about to happen? It's also strange because he doesn't even say anything. Doesn't stick around to be like, oh damn, wasn't that nuts? It's almost like he knew exactly what was going to happen and was just doing his part to stop it. And then he's out. Naturally, the internet lost its mind with theories. The most popular one, the guy giving the warning is a time traveler. Maybe he's from the future, maybe a version of the guy in front of him from a different reality, trying to make sure his past self doesn't die in a freak accident. Could this be a huge coincidence? Maybe, but maybe not. So this is some straight up NPC behavior, except in real life. So a guy in Omsk, Russia wakes up one morning and can't find his flock of sheep. Usually he expects to find them right where he left them, but not today. He goes out looking for them and to his surprise finds the entire flock of sheep standing on top of a roof. Now there's no obvious way for these sheep to get up there, no secret sheep elevator that we know of anyway. The man assumed they'd somehow gotten spooked by something and just climbed up the roof. How the hell do a bunch of sheep get up there without making a noise or causing a ruckus. It's like they just teleported to the top, like an NPC glitch in a video game randomly appearing on a roof. Next we have space orcs. Orcs standing for odd radio circles. So what are these? Well, they're actually what the name suggests, massive circular blobs in space that show up in radio telescope images. And no one really knows what they are. They were first discovered in 2020 when astronomers were mapping the sky using Australia's ASCAP radio telescope. These huge rings appeared out of nowhere, perfectly circular, massive in size, and didn't match anything scientists had seen before. They aren't galaxies, stars, supernova remnants, or anything that usually pops up in space surveys. Some scientists think they might be the result of huge explosions or collisions far, far away, cosmic shockwaves that left behind radio footprints we're just now seeing. But others think they could have something to do with galaxies which have active black holes at their centers. And then there's the more exciting possibility that orcs might be a sign of something completely new, some sort of phenomenon we just don't have a name for yet. Point is, for as much as we think we know, the world is a highly mysterious place.